Welcome to Full View on SABC News. I'm Francis Hurd. It's time for On the Record, our weekly debate or discussion. Tonight we ask why so many South African children are going missing. Who's to blame and how do we protect kids? Now in South Africa, a child goes missing every 9 hours. They are often found beaten or killed. The latest high-profile case involved 10-year-old Miguel Lowe, who went missing in July, allegedly after being kidnapped in Sydenham in Kwazulu-Natal. It's not been officially confirmed if a body that was then discovered later in Phoenix in a shallow grave is Miguel's. Those testing, DNA testing, a post-mortem still being done. But let's look at the bigger issue. To discuss, we're joined by Bianca van Aswegan, who is the National Coordinator of Missing Children South Africa. She joins us via Skype from Kuilsriver in the Cape. Good evening to you, Ms. van Aswegan. And also on the line, we're joined by Colonel Fanie from Deventer, who is from the Police's Bureau for Missing Persons. Ms. van Aswegan, let me start with you. So as far as you're aware, you were involved in the Miguel Lowe case. No conclusive testing. How do we deal with that limbo right now? What do you know?
Hi, good evening. Yes, Miguel Lowe's case is still under investigation at the moment as we are waiting on DNA results of his case. But it's been a heartbreaking time for his parents. Now, with every kidnapping case happening in South Africa, the parents are going through very much of an ordeal dealing with how to deal with this. Having a body being found now in Miguel's case as well, waiting on the DNA results that are coming, you know, it's such a hard thing for parents to deal with.
Missing persons, missing children South Africa, you support the police. Just explain that relationship very quickly.
Yes, we work very closely with the South African Police Services. We follow up on some leads also that come into us, relate that through to the South African Police Services, and we help in that such way that we can help and find these children that are actually going missing.
Colonel, I'd like to ask you, I don't know if you can comment on this specific case, but it seems that so often these things end very tragically, like him, found in a shallow grave. Is this specific case indicative of many examples in South Africa?
Good evening, Francis. No, it's not indicative of most of the cases. Most of the children are found alive and found within a very short time span. And abduction is actually about 5% of the cases that's reported where children are reported as missing. The problem is that we will never know what happened to a child until we find the child. So we wouldn't know if there was abduction, and that's where there's no waiting period to report a missing person per se to the police service. There's no waiting period like 24 hours on those, because we must immediately react on that and try to find that child before harm comes to that child.
Explain how crucial it is to act quickly, how important those early hours are.
Well, that's most important, the early hours, because even if a child, I can remember a lot of cases where a child actually, or children ran away from home, being naive, with grooming and whatever, and then fell prey to perpetrators. I mean, not necessarily abductors, but other crimes like prostitution, drug-related crimes, and those things.
Ms. van Aswegan, in your experience, do people understand that there is no waiting period?
Yes, they do know it, but we still stress that out to the public because there are people that actually still wait. And the first 24 hours to 48 hours is the most crucial when a child does go missing. So we put the message out there as much as we can to tell people to please do not wait. Report a child immediately to your nearest police station.
Can you give us examples where it's made a difference and maybe just tell us about the last case that you were working on?
Well, we've worked on so many cases, and especially when it comes to our runaways, when they get reported immediately, you know, we can find the child within the first 24 hours. But when it comes to a parent actually reporting the child only 2 or 3 days later, it is quite a problem. We've actually dealt with a case a while ago where the people were actually told, the parents were told to wait 24 hours, and unfortunately the child was actually found deceased 3 days later because of the case only being opened 2 days later when the child disappeared.
So that was the police not knowing what to do in that situation, and in fact telling the parents to go away.
Unfortunately, yes. That does happen sometimes, but also people are not educated out there in some communities, not knowing that they do not have to wait 24 hours.
Colonel, your response to that? So maybe people don't report, but are there still police officers on the ground not taking these cases seriously in the first few hours?
Well, Francis, let me put it to you like this. Let me tell you where the misconception about the waiting period comes from. It comes from the American movies, and in the rest of the world there is a waiting period to report anybody is missing. Our stance on that since the beginning, since we started the Bureau for Missing Persons, is that parents will first, whether they investigate it or not, will first phone the friends and all those things. So you've got a 6 to 8 hour time frame that will pass before they go to the police. Now, I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, that the police said, or a policeman said 24 hours, but what I want to say to the public, there is a national instruction that says there is no waiting period. So this guy can be charged, and they must just take the name and number. If they know there's no waiting period and they're shown away from the police station, they must demand the service. You can't go to a butchery and buy a screwdriver. So if you go to the police and you know there's no waiting period, you demand to get a service.
And are you actively training other officers, the Bureau for Missing Persons, to know how to deal with these cases? Is there a very quick turnover to your department if there is a missing child reported?
Well, we are constantly in training at the detective courses and also in client service centers personnel. But unfortunately, like I said, I mean, even in the SABC and big companies, there's always a guy 3 o'clock in the morning who doesn't want to do his work. So we wouldn't know about it until he's reported or she's reported to us. So then we can follow up, and then we will, from the Bureau side, put in disciplinary steps to bring them to book.
All right, Ms. van Aswegan, coming back to you, I was asking if this case is indicative because of the tragic ending. The Colonel saying only 5% of the cases end in death or tragedy. Do we at least take heart from that, or are you looking at the figures and saying this is a scourge?
The figures are still low when it comes to kidnappings, but it should not even be 5%. It should be less than that. So, yes, our children being found deceased, it should be a much lower number. And we as an organization, together with SABC, is really trying our best to combat this.
So the more prevalent case is a child running away. What do you experience? What causes basically children to go missing? But then obviously you have to take it seriously because of that 5%.
Yes, our highest number of children going missing is our runaways. We also deal with human trafficking cases, kidnapping cases, and also mentally challenged children that actually go missing, and that's also quite a big problem.
So tease out for me, kidnapping, how high is the prevalence?
We've worked on 19 kidnapping cases in the last year. That was what our organization received regarding our cases. And we've got 92 cases of runaway children that we dealt with.
And I'd like to come to the Colonel, but first, Ms. van Aswegan, so a child is kidnapped. On the cases you've worked on, who are the kidnappers? Who are these people?
That's a very difficult question to answer because that could be anyone. But the number of cases that we've dealt with, most of them we've actually seen that the people that are the perpetrators in these cases are actually known to the child. So we've always taught our children stranger danger. Yes, that still exists, but people should be very vigilant of their family members and family friends as well, because the children trust them, they gain the child's trust, and they could be the perpetrators themselves.
Yeah. Colonel, coming to you, in kidnapping cases, who are the kidnappers?
Well, like you said, in most of the cases, it's somebody close to the child. I can just explain to you that in most cases of kidnapping, it's not opportunistic crime. It's not where somebody see a child walking along the street and kidnapping that child. It's a well-planned crime. They groom the child, they make friends with the child. It's the good uncle that always gives sweets and everything and whatever. And you must remember, it's even better planned than the ATM robbery or bank robbery, because you're not working with a dead entity. It's a child that can scream, that must be taken to a safe place where nobody can see the child and all those things.
Yeah.
So in most of the cases, it's somebody known to the child and known to the family. Which brings me back to your previous thing about where does it start. I can tell you that prevention is better than cure. So everything actually starts in your own house. It's a question of teaching your children the right ways to handle situations and being vigilant of your child's safety, because they can't look after themselves.
All right, before we look at what you can actually do to protect children, Colonel, can you give us more examples, kidnapping cases where you say there's been meticulous planning, and what is the end goal there? Are we talking about trafficking cases or where some purpose for that child has been deemed necessary by the kidnapper?
Well, let me put it like this. If you think back about the Saldini Monk case, that was also a boyfriend that was known to her. And you're asking me, why do they kidnap children? There's several reasons for that, amongst them child trafficking, but mostly for sexual fulfillment, and then in babies' cases where they steal babies and whatever, where they can't have children themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, this common theme that somebody's involved. In November last year, Njabulo Makani and Luyanda Mzmoy went missing after school, and Njabulo's father's ex-girlfriend was among the accused. So, Ms. van Deventer, is that a common theme? And then I'll come to you, Colonel, but Ms. van Deventer, is that a common theme that it's someone quite close? And we're often hearing about ex-girlfriends, ex-boyfriends, partners of the parents involved, or are those just the high-profile cases that land up in the press?
Yes, no, some of them are definitely involved. We've dealt with a few cases like that. Recently, we've dealt with two in the Western Cape as well, where the mother's boyfriend was also involved in the disappearance and the murder of the child. So yes, that really does happen. And like the Colonel also said, it is usually people that the children know that does this to the children.
So what was the situation there? Is that about revenge?
Yes, most of them are revenge cases that we've dealt with. And it's actually quite sad that the child is actually the victim in something like that.
Colonel, on the same theme, how prevalent is that? Partners of the parents involved, people who've been close to the family, and then maybe angry?
It's very prevalent. I can remember several cases where the girlfriend actually kidnapped the children and stashed the children away because she couldn't have a baby with the boyfriend and all those things. And it's a question of not only anger, it's a question of being shunned away, and then they take the child.
All right, and then you said it begins at home. So let's start looking at how you protect children. What do you do as a parent? Let's start there, Colonel.
Okay, there's several tips that you can give, and my partner down at South African Centre for Missing Children in South Africa also spoke about it, that we always warn children about strangers in danger. Now, I gave lessons to children a while back where they actually said to me, but how can you say to us, go to somebody we trust? Because you say policeman, you say teacher, you say, and every day we read about teachers sexually abusing children and all those things. So I think the most important thing for parents is actually to know the friends of their children, to know with whom they go around with. It's a question of, with social media nowadays, know what your child is doing on Facebook. Know what your child, we recently had a case down in Cape Town where this girl went missing and she had 2 Facebook profiles. One, she was the sweetest child, and the other one is a totally different picture of that child. Parents must pick up on those things. I don't know, up to the age of 18, you're responsible for your child. So you're responsible for what's happening on the cell phones. You're responsible for what happens at schools. And I know schools are supposed to look after children and also teach them, but they're not there to safeguard the children. During school hours, but to actually become the best friend of the child and to communicate with the child every day and to find out what's really happening in that child's life.
Yeah, this advice often comes up: be social media savvy, if that's what it takes, to know what your children are doing and where are they. All right, let's leave it there. We'll take a short break, but please stay with us. Colonel Fanie van Deventer and Bianca van Aswegan from Missing Children South Africa. We'll be back with you. We take a short break.